All right, race fans, we are back. We're here to talk strategy and answer your questions about fantasy lineups ahead of the Japanese GP, one of the most iconic and historically significant F1 races on the calendar at Suzuka. And we know that you need us this week. We know because there was some crazy, crazy stuff that happened at the last event. There was team switching, there was disqualifications, there was lots of drivers going up in value, a maximum amount and down in value. So we are here to discuss it. Before we get going, some quick introductions. I'm Ross, founder and CEO of GridRival. With me, Dad Michael Ursinoli, our CTO, Ryan Booth, Director of Business Operations, and William Laddie, our Principal Software Engineer. Quick reminder to like and subscribe to the channel if you are not already doing so. That way you won't have to rely on our push notifications to find out when these shows are coming live. And for those of you that have watched this show and followed closely last year, you probably noticed we kind of switched to a new time. We wanted to move later in the week. Typically, we'll be on Fridays where we have a couple practice sessions, or at least a single practice session to look at. So make note of that. And start getting your questions in. We typically answer them in the order in which they come in. So if you do have questions about lineups, about strategy, about game mechanics, game rules, whatever it is, start getting them in. And we will start answering them as soon as we go over winners and losers from last week. I was just telling William before we went live, I think this is the first, well, I don't know if it's the first, but I will say, I don't think in a very long time, potentially if ever, on this game, I have seen 12 drivers go up or down the maximum amount. We had 8 drivers go up by $2 million, 4 drivers go down by $2 million, the full amount. That is thanks to 2 Ferraris being DQ'd. So you essentially had 2 top drivers and 2 very high mid-tier drivers get all the way to the end of the grid. So everybody got bumped up 4 positions. Very, very kind of rare set of circumstances. And it leaves opportunity on the board. It also leaves a little bit of challenge, maybe even confusion if you're new to the game. So again, we're here to help. Winners from last week. Piastri, Russell, Albon, Ocon, Behrman, Stroll, Adjar, Doohan, all up $2 million. Bortoletto up 1.6. Is the biggest winner, though, not Yuki? I mean...
Oh, he's the biggest winner. He has a better car, and the car that he deserved the entire time. I think the only reason they didn't put him in to begin with because they saw him as a Honda guy, and Honda's leaving Red Bull at the end of this year. But Yuki's the better driver, and he's the more experienced driver, and Austin may be the guy someday, but I don't think he's the guy today.
I think the biggest winner is Haas. I'm gonna show Haas a little bit of love because I think later in the show I'm gonna dump on them pretty hard. But for now, like what a showing. They showed up with a little bit of pace. Yeah, the DQs helped bump them up the grid a little bit, but they were the biggest gainer of constructor. I think both drivers went up 2 after Australia. I mean, it looked real bad in Australia. So the fact that they showed up in China and actually put together a decent performance, I'll give them a little shine right now because I don't think we'll have much positive to say about them today.
Well, if you were all in on Haas last week, that's up 6.6 million.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was, but
of course,
if they were, good for them.
Somebody was there's just enough permutations of players that somebody was all in on Haas. I'd have to imagine. Any other big winners do you guys think you want to call out? I mean, I think anybody who finished last week, for the most part, was a winner. Of the people that finished, only 5 lost value, and the most was $500,000. So I kind of feel like there was a lot of winners last week.
And not only finished, but didn't get caught cheating afterwards. I think George Russell a big winner, in part because, Ferrari cheated. But we'll see if Mercedes can sustain that pace.
Losers. Obviously...
The cheaters.
Lawson, kind of a big loser, but he lost his seat. That's tough. He's definitely not the first Red Bull driver to lose his seat. Dare I say, well, actually, I was going to say maybe prematurely, but I don't know. It was a very rough start. But man, after 2 events to get cut, that is Red Bull has historically made cuts very quickly relative to other teams. 2 races is like I would have that is very, very quick. But I do agree, statistically speaking, I think Yuki was the one that probably should have been in that car from the first place. So, anyways, Lawson, I think a big loser after last week. Stayed flat on our game. Well, sorry, he changed in our game because he moved off of our game into a different driver and constructor, which I'm sure there are plenty of questions about. Anyways, other losers, Ferrari, the Ferrari had a rough go, two disqualifications. Both drivers dropped $2 million. The team dropped 3. So that's about the worst it gets. That is the worst it gets. If you were all in Ferrari, down 7 million. That's painful.
They'd never had a double disqualification before, ever in 75 years. This has never happened before to Ferrari.
Wow, really?
That's what they were saying.
Maybe the FIA needs to start grading on a curve. That sounds aggressive then.
Yeah, so much for Ferrari international assistance, as some people like to say.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. We got Alonso was a DNF, so he dropped $2 million. Pierre Gasly down 2 million. And then you had Hulkenberg, Lando, Antonelli, Verstappen, all down less than $500,000. So very kind of minor losses. I think if you had those people on your team, I don't think I'd be too worried. Any other losers from last week you guys think that we didn't call out? None.
Mostly just Ferrari in my mind. It's hard to point to anybody else and say you're a loser when Ferrari was the biggest loser you could ever be.
They made a winner out of everybody else, though. Think of it that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
they sure
is now a time to call Lawson a loser? I don't know. Are we doing that?
I don't think Lawson's. I think this might be good for Lawson. I'll get to it later when we talk about value. But
I think so too. But
he's going to score more championship points in the Racing Bull than he ever would have the Red Bull.
It is going to be interesting to see how Yuki does in that Red Bull car. Okay, we are there, Ryan. We are there. We're going to talk about undervalued car. We're going to talk about value on the board and really just strategy this week. There's already one of the first comments was I need some serious advice this week. I think a lot of people are in that boat, right? What do you do this week after such a bizarre set of circumstances last week? After a essentially, I don't know, worthless Q2. I mean, how many red flags was there, Ryan? 4?
Yep, we had Duan, big wreck. Alonso went off, and then the grass kept catching on fire. So that was super fun. Hopefully that's solved with qualifying in the race coming up. I did see it's supposed to rain, so I would imagine that will help. But other than that, maybe Japan should figure some stuff out about not letting the grass catch on fire.
I felt kind of similar to some of the comments I've seen as we're going through the board this afternoon, without much data to look at in practice. I just didn't see the value of drivers across the board. There's nothing like major that screamed out to me other than a couple that normally does. Like one that I feel like if we're thinking about blue chip drivers, I feel like Leclerc, after dropping $2 million, seems like he could be a good, long-term top 6 addition to your team. Hamilton dropped 2 million, but like I don't feel like he's a value. I feel like he's already fairly close to his ceiling unless he continues to start finishing top 3, top 4 every single event. What did you guys like? What's your gut on what is standing out to you in terms of significant value or most significant value?
The only thing, I'm all in on Racing Bulls this week. I like both the drivers. I think Lawson comes out and has his best performance of the year, which again, not saying much, but I think he can keep that car on the track and just be fine in it. I think Hadjar looked pretty solid in practice, and he's so cheap. I think he's kind of my number one target for any lineup this weekend at that price point, and I think he's going to put together a pretty solid performance. And then Racing Bulls as a constructor, I'll definitely be running them as a constructor as well, unless we see anything crazy in FP3 later tonight. But I think for my money, those three are the best values on the board. Racing Bulls all over the place.
I'm going Leclerc and Ferrari. I think Ferrari is a good enough discount to be worth jumping on. Ferrari as a constructor, I think probably gains that value in the span of about 2 or 3 races to realize what they're actually worth. This is round number 3 by my count. Round 6 is a sprint, so I probably go 3 races as the term for Ferrari just so that I have the money for a driver for Miami. Yeah, Leclerc, I think Leclerc's the better choice compared to Hamilton, but if you can only swing Hamilton budget-wise, I'm fine with Hamilton as well. They have the pace, and if the cars are legal, then they'll actually gain you some value. And also, I like Hadjar. He's probably my talent driver.
Yes.
Yeah, can't argue with any of that. I would offer the only. I agree with both you guys, Ferrari and Racing Bulls right now. But if you already have Williams, I wouldn't drop Williams. I think that's I think that's still a good place. If you have Williams, I wouldn't be dropping Williams. Sainz has, the experience, especially if we get a wet race on Sunday. I know he's had some he's still getting comfortable with the car, but Albon's good. Albon's a solid choice. Sainz is still a solid choice. So if you have Williams as a constructor or Williams drivers, I'm not dropping them on the lineups that I have them on right now. But I am bullish on Hadjar and Ferrari as well for this. And also I'll throw in, do we talk about George Russell yet at all?
No.
George Russell's consistency is worth mentioning in terms of his performance over like the last 8 races. Maybe I'm forgetting something in there that he didn't show up for. But if you're looking for a blue chip driver, not a lot of upside, but a really good chance for good points. I wouldn't balk on Russell right now, especially with potentially a wet rain on Sunday. He did well in that last time. So
is there rain forecasted? I haven't looked at the
right now. There's rain forecasted for the race, but it's go ahead, William. You know more about the weather in Japan.
I looked it up right before the show. I'm seeing about a 40% chance of showers around the start of the race, decreasing as the race goes on. So
interesting.
Might have a green racetrack because it might rain overnight. Not a lot of rain, but a bit of rain. And then maybe a bit of rain. It doesn't seem like a total washout like a couple years ago when the race got shortened that year. Yeah, they moved it out of typhoon season, and we're still talking about rain. Amazing.
Rain's different than a typhoon.
Yeah, like they used to run this race in the fall, but that's during typhoon season, and that's a problem. And so they decided, let's not do that, and here we are.
Yeah.
So we can't have a podcast episode without talking about the stroller coaster. We're not referring to the American stock market. We're referring to Lance Stroll, who has been up the most amount for every race this season so far, which is only 2. Started at 6.2. He's now at 10.2. What upside? Where do you think his plateau is? His safe plateau? You think he's at a spot where you say undervalued, or do you think he's like starting to get into risky territory, knowing our deep history with his ups and downs?
I mean, Stroll was always risky territory, which is why he was priced so low. He had the biggest difference between teammates in terms of value at the start of the season. He had a really, really poor showing at the end of last season, which reflected in his value at the start of the season. And the first 2 races, he did well, and he gained a lot of value, and he scored a lot of points. That's not going to last forever, right? There's going to be a Stroll moment, but something's telling me it's not Suzuka against all odds.
Yeah.
I think he's got one more. I think he's got one more before the big drop.
Bad Fish 41 in our chat says that statistically Suzuka is the worst track for Stroll. I have not fact checked that at all. I don't know if that's true or not. But
well, if that's true, then he's overdue for crushing it at Suzuka, right?
I would also say right now he is 5th to last. He's ahead of the Saubers and Hadjar and Doohan. I think he's approaching the plateau in terms of relative ranking. I think that Haas might fall towards where Stroll's at. I think he's faster than the Haas cars most weeks. I do think that Hadjar is going to surpass Stroll, though. So I think Stroll's going to be stabilizing in the next couple of races. So I'm less excited about him. His practice times were not very good last night. Not that we got really meaningful times from FP2 just because of all the red flags, but it's not encouraging this week.
Yeah. And as far as tracks go, Suzuka has a lot of walls, and also it has very deep gravel traps that are very far from the escape roads. So that's where Stroll doesn't do too well.
Like he doesn't do well distinguishing the road from the sand trap, as we saw in
Yeah.
Brazil last
So
year.
this could be an advantage then. If there's no escape road, he's not going to drive himself off the escape road into the gravel. So
Not again.
This could be, this could be good for Stroll. I think he's just if you have him, you've made a ton of value. Probably hold him.
You got to hodl.
Hodl Stroll.
Hodl Stroll.
I'm not worried about. I mean, you got to be a little weary of the Canadians with all the tariffs and the trade wars going on right now. But I still think he might be okay in Japan. But yeah, FP1 was not encouraging. But I will say, if you don't have Stroll or Hadjar and you have to pick one, it's Hadjar. But if you have Stroll, I wouldn't be rushing to drop him unless maybe FP3 looks like a disaster. But I guess you never know.
Yeah.
And his dad has a newly finished yacht that was, I believe they just moved out of storage and had to take a few bridges apart to get it onto the water, right?
Yep.
So he's got that going for him. Should we move to some Q&A?
Yeah.
Carla Hutchinson wants to know, Yuki's 8-race average, was it adjusted at all when he was
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so if you look at the improvement index in the app, that's what we base the improvement points on. We made Tsunoda's average 9th and Lawson's 12th, and they're starting with a clean slate. So we're going to assume that their last 8 races were 9th and 12th respectively. And next week at Bahrain, it'll be 7 races, 9th and 12th, plus however they finish at Japan and so on. So they're essentially 2 races behind everybody else as far as filling in the past results now. But yeah, we did make those adjustments. We did also adjust the salaries, as I'm sure you all see in the app right now as well.
I don't think anyone noticed that. I don't think anyone noticed that we adjusted the salaries of those 2 drivers.
Yeah,
I don't think one person did.
Yuki now 18.1 million, just above that talent threshold, and Lawson at 12.9, and we'll see where they go from there.
Is Lawson a good investment?
Is that a good segue to finally address this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to address it. Okay. So as you saw in most league chats, lots of players had Tsunoda signed, right? Tsunoda was signed to Racing Bulls, right? How do you think this works? Do you think they just throw him the keys and say, go get him, kid? No, he signs a new contract as a Red Bull driver with a new salary and new perks. He gets the private jet now. Okay. That he doesn't get that from the Faenza based team, right?
He's not flying commercial anymore. This isn't minority anymore.
Yeah. He doesn't go to work in Italy. He goes to work in the UK now. Okay. So he's on a different team. Yuki going to Red Bull is the same as if Yuki went to Alpine in terms of our contracts. He signed a new contract with a new team. If you think Yuki is the same, is worth the same price and contract value as a Red Bull driver, as a Racing Bull drivers, I would say tell that to Tell Lawson he's on the same team. Tell Lawson that Racing Bulls is Red Bull. I'm sure it'll help him when he cries himself to sleep at night. So that's what
Alex Albon didn't get demoted all those years ago.
Oh boy.
But yeah, like the rule is in our game. Anytime a driver changes teams on a permanent basis, they start with a clean slate. We come up with a new value. We come up with a new rank, and that's what happens here. So we followed the rules that we've always followed. It's just that both drivers stayed on the grid, which is a bit different than it's been in recent years when we've had a driver change.
And last thing I'll say, no drop fee, no 1 race lockout. Official F1 game, you had to burn a swap credit to do this. Okay.
Yeah, so no lockout.
We handled it better.
Yeah. I even had to fix a bug, wait on a Friday to make that happen.
Yep.
We care that much.
We do. And we tend to receive a lot of noise from people who don't read the rules and are frustrated by how things happen because they didn't read the rules. And Mike, poor Mike, received the brunt of it. because he does. Mike is very accessible. He's very active in customer
Paddock,
support in
league
the
chat.
paddock, following
Yep.
paddock.
I
in the
listen
public
to
league
all
chats.
the players. I'm always taking feedback about the app as it's
That's
my
right.
responsibility. And so a lot of you spoke to me over the last week or two.
Okay, let's see. Gasly for talent. Oh wait, is Lawson a good investment now that he has a stable car? I don't know that any of us know.
I know.
I would. You do. Ryan knows.
Oh yeah, he's going to be great. He's going to be
Okay.
fine.
There you
We're buying the dip on Lawson. At least I am. I don't know.
Are you really?
I am. Yeah, I'll probably be. I have to
What do you
move
mean
a couple things
probably?
around.
Are you or not?
Well, we still have another practice session, but
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I'm running Racing Bulls, so that's investing.
How did
in
Lawson?
Lawson.
I don't remember very far back these days. But how did he do in practice at the last two events in the Red Bull? Did he do poor in practice?
It was
didn't he?
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How did he do in FP1?
not last.
Yeah.
Not last.
We're doing upward trend right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's not. Is he middle? Is he 15th?
He's
Sorry,
a
10th?
mid-packer. He's in a Racing Bulls. Like he's ahead of Sauber. He's ahead of Haas.
Yeah.
That's
Look, James, Ryan. Maybe Ryan and I have different advice. I'm like, there's enough other opportunities on the board. I feel like, for me, I'll probably be sitting out of Yuki and Lawson this week, unless the caveat is anything we tell you, just remember it's pre FP3, and our opinions may change. But like, I feel like unless either of them have an FP3 that's just like mind-boggling relative to both their current price and what they did in their previous cars, I'm probably going to sit out a race. That's just me. I'm actually not very good at this game. So just that's my opinion though. I don't know if you guys, Ryan obviously has a different opinion, but
like I think Lawson finishes in the points on Sunday. That is my prediction. I think Hadjar for sure does. The only thing that keeps me a little hesitant on Lawson is I would much rather have Hadjar at current price. Which I'm for sure rostering Hadjar. Lawson, I'm going to try and make it work. We'll see how it works. Racing Bulls for sure, the constructor. And then, yeah, I think Lawson finishes, I'll say 10th.
I hope he does. I mean, when he had stepped in, it was a 22, right, for Ricardo?
23.
Was it 23? Yeah. That's right. That was 2 years ago. He did incredible, you know, and I feel like his performance in the Red Bull out the gate, I think, was surprising to everybody. So I hope that he does. It would be great progress for him to be able to do that. And I think for sure, very redemptive. So I hope we see it. Gage says Gasly for talent driver. Oof.
Why?
I don't think so. Let me pull that up.
I
Gasly.
don't love Alpine in general.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it's probably not like it's probably like a safe talent driver pick, but I mean, there's so much on the board underneath him.
I'd rather have either Williams driver.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Hadjar. And
if Hadjar has like a crazy race, I mean, he's going to be worth a ton of points. If he can finish in the top 10 or like just has so I don't know. I think there's more upside. I think Gasly's like maybe more of like a safe play.
Let's also look at Gasly's improvement index. He's 13th right now in improvement index. So to score improvement points, so he's needs to be near the points.
That means that he needs to get above 13th position. Really, he needs to get above 11th, P11 to get improvement points. Yeah. Whereas someone like Hadjar, he's I think
16th
in improvement.
Yeah.
That's not ranked 16th. That's his average.
That's his improvement index. Yeah, 16th.
Yeah. Here's why you run Gasly. League adoption. Open up your league adoption stats. If Gasly is like super low, like 20% or lower, that is a play to make. It's called a contrarian play for any new listeners. So if you take Gasly, put talent driver on Gasly, and Gasly does perform, you're getting points that most of your league is probably not getting, because most other people are probably going to be going Albon, Sainz, Hadjar. So if you go Gasly, and Gasly's at least consistent, and the top, like the most league adopted talent driver in your league is not, then you get those contrarian points, and that could help you, leapfrog ahead a little bit.
Alex says, nice to tune in at a reasonable time here in Australia. Yeah, we feel your pain.
Yeah.
We know what you mean. Okay. Is Lewis and Hamilton Ferrari buys? I kind of think we already talked about that. I feel like we all kind of think they're a good pick. I mean, I think that now, I'll just say on right now, you have a very good cross section of both value opportunity, to the extent that you can get value opportunity in, top 3 ranked team and top 5 or 6 ranked driver. I think you have a really good intersection of value opportunity and points upside, which is not something you get to say every single race for the blue chip drivers on the board.
I'd rather roster Ferrari as a team than a Ferrari driver, maybe, to get to, because if both the Ferrari drivers do well, then for less money you can get the $3 million increase. If they really do well, I don't think they're going to get a $3 million increase, but I think that might be that's like the hedge there, because I can't pick between Leclerc and Hamilton for this right now, and the price difference isn't enough that I'm going to value seek with Hamilton. So I'd probably go Leclerc if anything.
Daniel Longworth, if a driver you picked increases in value last race and you drop him before his contract ends, do you still get that increase in value minus the drop fee?
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
When you release a driver early, whatever they're worth now, that's what you're getting minus the drop fee.
Let's see. Do Yuki and Lawson have value potential this week? I feel like we've hit on that, haven't we?
I think my one thing we haven't talked about in regards to Yuki, I don't want him this weekend just because he's right above the talent driver threshold. I think if he's going to have growing pains in the new car, it's probably going to show up in the first race. I would assume he gets stronger as the year goes on, but I wouldn't put it by him to maybe have a lackluster performance on Sunday. I mean, he did look good in the first practice session, but again, race completely different. And you know what? If he drops down into that talent threshold, and maybe he probably becomes a buy at that point. But at current price, I'm just kind of staying away from him.
Cool. We're starting into getting into some questions about specific lineups. So looks like Cam Bryden's first. I have Piastri 2 races, Leclerc 1 race, Stroll 3, Hadjar 2, VCarb 1, and 21 million looking for a good upside or a talent driver. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. You say he has 21 to buy one driver.
21 to
He's got a Hadjar. I feel like that's a good talent driver already. I mean, it's not the highest rank, but I think, like we already said,
I would go right to spending all the money and go right to Antonelli. I think watch Antonelli in FP3 and then make that call and just spend all the money on Antonelli for the points. I think obviously I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you what's going to happen, but he's shown up well as a Mercedes driver so far. So I would probably spend all the money and go Antonelli, because Yuki's just maybe a little bit of a gamble. Brand new car, Suzuka, a little bit of rain, a little bit of a gamble, but I'm going to Antonelli, possibly Tsunoda, but most likely Antonelli if you have 21 million left.
Yeah, this might be one of the few times where Tsunoda might work out on a lineup. I know this contradicts exactly what I just said, but if you're spending the money on him, like, I mean, why not? You don't want to leave it in your bank. And if he does well, good for you. You got a bunch of points and you gain some value. And if he doesn't, then you can just run him as a talent driver next week. So
if you're picking among these drivers, if you're not making any other changes to your lineup, I probably go Albon. Perhaps I gamble on Tsunoda. Albon would leave some money on the table. If you're open to changing your lineup, I consider getting off the stroller coaster and grabbing Hamilton, which is more Ferrari exposure. But I
feel like Stroll, if you had Stroll for the first two races, you could drop him and actually still walk away with what, $3.5 million.
Yeah, like you're probably selling high on Stroll, in my opinion, if you sell Stroll. And I do think that Hamilton is going to be a considerable upgrade over Antonelli or Sonoda. Just looking at how these cars are, I think Mercedes may be coming a bit back down to earth this week. Where the first two races, like they've had some help from other people's misfortunes and getting the results they've had. And then Sonoda, new car. The Red Bull's not the fastest car either. And look at where Max has been in practice. Like he's like fifth and eighth in the two practice sessions yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't particularly happy with how it handled either.
Yeah. So if
I guess
Max
he
doesn't
never
like
is,
the
but-
car, just imagine Yuki.
Maybe he loves it.
Maybe.
We'll
Maybe
find
they
out.
gave him the Suzuka special Honda
Yeah.
like they used to do back in the day where, crank it way up and pray it holds together.
Okay, Alex, need two drivers for 42.1 million to have Piastri, Stroll, Hadjar, and Williams, Leclerc, and Sainz on cooldown.
Oof. No Leclerc, no Sainz.
42.
42 million. So you can grab Hamilton at a discount.
Yeah, I was going to say he only has one upper tier driver and kind of like a mid tier rank constructor. So I'd trying to build something to get some points. And I do like Leclerc, which would bring him.
Yeah, he can't take Leclerc though. Leclerc's on
That's right.
lockout. So
You can take Hamilton.
I'm going Lando and Lawson.
Really?
Yep, I think you get the likely race winner. And then again, like I buy low on Lawson at this point. So I think that fits. Yeah, that's about.
yeah, Lando gets you points. He doesn't get you money, is the one downside there. But yeah, I like that though. Like Lando and Lawson are a viable choice.
You also have Lando and Sainz.
Lando and Sainz.
You can't do science.
You also have
Sainz is
you
locked.
could do Hamilton and you'd have to do
Hadjar?
Hamilton and Yuki.
And it's okay if we don't spend all our money. Remember that as well.
Yeah. I think you got to I feel like at this point though there's got to be a lot of upside. I mean, Hadjar still could have a lot of upside.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
he's only
I think
$9 million
Hadjar could make you another $2 million in value and
Yeah.
get you a decent chunk of points.
for sure.
Like,
He's already got
the whole
Hadjar,
show
so
we've been
he's good.
talking about him potentially finishing the race in the points.
So you could even go you could go Norris, Hadjar, you could go Norris.
I
He
probably
has
take
Hadjar
Hamilton
already.
Hadjar.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
He already has Hadjar.
All right.
Oh, he has Hadjar. Darn. Okay, so I take Hamilton and then probably Lawson.
Hamilton and Yuki or Norris and what was your recommendation, Ryan? Antonelli?
Lawson.
Norris and Lawson.
The Lando Lawson, the
Lando
duo.
Lawson.
Yeah.
Those are two good options. Holy cow. It's already 5:33. I have COF. I have Sainz for 2 more races. Do I keep him in hopes to make back my money or drop him for 400K and take the stroller coaster? Okay, let's address these two things separately. Well, I guess maybe if that's his only option.
I
don't
Sainz
like
way better.
What?
I like Sainz way better than Stroll. Sorry to
Yeah, for
interrupt.
sure.
Paying-
Stroller coaster to me is not a hot buy right now. Like, sure, he has upside if he keeps doing what he did the last 2 races, but we call him the stroller coaster for a reason.
Like paying a drop fee to jump on the stroller coaster
Yeah.
it's either really dumb or it's a power move. Like I love the idea behind it. I don't know if I
think in any
could
case,
do it.
your outcome will be very polarizing. So, if you're trying to make the contrarian play, which we talk about a lot, and this goes well for you, it will probably go very well. Something to consider. I think the upside is maybe there for the risk, but maybe not in a significant way.
I don't think it's worth a drop fee.
Declan's Random Videos has asked, cheers, thanks for a later start time. First time being able to tune in live. I have 42.1 million. That's the exact amount that Alex had. Need 2 drivers and a constructor, locked out of Stroll and Albon. So he got off the stroller coaster. Very good timing, Declan. 42, 2 drivers and a constructor. Oof.
Not knowing the rest of the lineup, that's going to be tricky to pick here.
We don't know which constructor he's locked out of.
All right, let's skip. Declan, if you're still here, let us know. We'll try and catch it again. Yeah, by the way, guys, if you want, and gals, if you want lineup, let us know who's on your team currently, how many contracts remained, who are you locked out of, how much money do you have? Those are the 4 things we need to know to give you some advice. Okay, let's see. Sunday rain. Should we count on that when we create a lineup?
I'm not counting on it.
I wouldn't count on it, but I think it's definitely worth considering. We'll leave it at that because we got a lot of questions. Ducktooth. I got Norris 4, Piastri 2, Sainz 2, locked out of Racing Bulls, Albon and Stroll. Great job dropping Stroll on time. A lot of people took Stroll. They weren't in the comments though in our last shows. I got 41 million to spend. Should I drop Sainz? Same question. I don't feel like is there something I'm missing here? What's Sainz priced at? Sainz is 13 million.
13.4.
What do you want to drop him for? Tempted to go for 2 1-week contracts to get back Albon and Racing Bulls. Value is my priority.
Okay, if value's your priority with your 41 million to spend, let's think about who might be discounts. If we're looking for value, we're certainly not going to throw some value away by dropping somebody. I don't think.
Yeah, definitely Hadjar.
Yes, yeah, Hadjar for sure. Which that leaves you at 32 million.
You could do Hadjar, Ferrari, Bortoletto. You can go on the bottom end of the drivers and take Ferrari. If Ferrari shows up, you get the contract increase there. Same with Hadjar. I assume Bortoletto is going to be doing.
Bortoletto is, I agree, like he's still at a price point where like if there's 1 or 2 DNFs, like he just has to finish and he might have some value, let alone if he finishes, 16th, he will garner some cash.
Yeah.
Now, last time out, Bortoletto only beat his teammate, but his finish position was propped up by all the cheating that happened.
Yeah.
Dustin, my buddy gained 9.8 this weekend. What a guy. That's a good week. Hopefully some of his contracts end and he actually captured it. Let's see. What to do with Sainz? A lot of Sainz questions. I've had him for talent driver last 2 races. Keep or drop? Keep with Williams as my team or drop for Hamilton and Sauber? So I'm assuming he means he'd be dropping both of those?
It sounds like a lot of people have their hand hovering over the panic button on Sainz. I'm not there yet. I actually think he's a decent buy this week at 13. If I had him, I certainly would not drop him. Again, I think there's probably some value lower down the board that I might sign before Sainz. But if I have Sainz on my roster, I'm not dropping him unless like there's some huge gain of value somewhere else I can utilize those funds for. But I don't see myself wanting to drop Sainz really at all this week, honestly.
And I think going Hamilton Sauber might be a bit of a wash. I think Hamilton is going to gain some value. I am less confident that Sauber gains value just because they tend to be the slowest car. Unless you tell me Haas is going to be slower. Because again, like China was a case of them getting propped up by 3 disqualifications. Like they beat Ferrari because Ferrari didn't have any classified finishers. So consider that as well. Like I don't know that Sauber actually has much room to grow. Like they may actually lose some value as they ends up resuming last place.
Yeah. But also, I wouldn't say Haas doesn't really fall into the same boat as Sauber when you look at getting propped up. I mean, Ocon and Behrman ran great races regardless of the DQs that did bump them up a little in the end.
Madison Quinton, I've got Piastri for 3 races, Leclerc for 1 race, Sainz for 2 races, Hadjar for 3 races, 1 spot and 13 million to spend. First of all, any drops in there? I don't think so. Piastri, Leclerc, nope. Everyone needs to stay.
I'm not.
Did they mention a constructor? Did I miss something? They didn't, but I guess they don't want.
Yeah.
I guess they're sticking with whatever they say. What? Go ahead, Mike.
I don't think Lawson's crazy on this one. I think you've got Piastri, Leclerc, Sainz, Hadjar. You've got a great lineup there. If Lawson does well,
Yeah, I mean your other options are like not. They're equally not that great. I mean,
Yeah.
Behrman is.
Watson's going to be stable.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not as sold on Haas as some other people here are, but yeah,
Who might you be talking about?
Yeah, I think Watson's probably the most stable choice. Haas maybe has slightly more upside, but I also see some downside there. Practice was not encouraging yesterday, and was China the aberration? That's the real question. Maybe the result in China was the aberration and not Australia.
And if your league adoption on Lawson is low, you've got a great lineup. Lawson's a good gamble in that one, I think.
Okay. Let's see. Night Owl thinking about dropping my Williams for Ferrari this week. I think we need more context there.
If you can
It
swing
depends
into
on
it.
what other moves you're making.
Yeah, for sure. I need more.
I think Ferrari can make you some money, and Ferrari will almost certainly score you some more points. But what else are you doing? Like if you somehow have extra money in the bank and it's literally just drop Williams, take Ferrari, okay, sounds good. Good luck.
Yeah, for sure. Liam Hanlon, 30.2 million, locked out of Albon and Doohan. Currently, Piastri, Russell, Sainz, and Williams. 30 million. Hadjar. And then
Hadjar Hamilton.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Does that work?
Fit?
It
Yes,
doesn't fit.
That fits.
It doesn't?
No, it doesn't fit. That
Doesn't
doesn't
fit.
fit. Darn.
Hadjar and Antonelli?
It'd be Hadjar, Antonelli, which
Or maybe Hamilton and someone below Hadjar. Bortoletto, probably.
Yeah. In this situation, this is a situation I would play Bortoletto just as the cheap points play because you get 25 million after that. So you have everyone from Russell down. So I would consider the Bortoletto play. And also like lineups that do really well sometimes like will kind of frequently have the lowest ranked driver in there to kind of stack the teams and the other drivers up higher. And you're just betting on not DNF. That's all you need to happen is that driver doesn't DNF.
Yeah, if other people have problems, he doesn't. He's going to gain a bunch. If you're going Bortoletto, I think you might even be able to afford Leclerc at that point. Which
you can get everyone from Russell down.
This is where I would drop Williams for Racing Bulls, and you get more money to play with. And I think Racing Bulls outperforms Williams this weekend, so I think it's worth a drop fee there. And then you can sign. Then you have a little more money to make the previous suggestions work. But that would be my suggestion.
I'm going to skip forward a little bit and then come back just because there's some game-related questions I think are important. Giovanni Kanata asked, I'd love to know your opinion on choosing a high-value driver over a high-value constructor. William, I feel like you'd be a great person to answer this.
High-value driver versus constructor. Okay, so with a high-value constructor, what you're getting is, or really any constructor, what you're getting points based on qualifying and race position only. There's no teammate points, there's no improvement points, there's no completion, nothing else, just position. So it's going to be just straight up race finish position. The nice thing with a constructor is you have a somewhat higher floor. If somebody has a problem, it's usually just one car and not both. Never mind what happened with Ferrari last time, but you won't lose quite as much as, say, your driver gets taken out on the first lap. So the floor is a bit higher, even if the ceiling is not quite as high. As far as salary growth, constructors can move up and down 3 million, so potential for loss of value there. With high value drivers, what are you getting there? You are getting, in a lopsided team situation like we had at Red Bull, you're getting a bunch more teammate points. You're getting improvement points if you have somebody who surprises like to the upside. For example, I think Hadjar has greatly outperformed where we thought he would be. and he's a lower value driver, but that's just for illustration. So you get more ways to score points with drivers and potentially more points from a driver. You have slightly less potential to gain and lose value. It's only up and down 2 million. And then you have a much lower floor. Your driver gets taken out at the beginning of the race, you're going to have a bad points day. The other thing to note is that drivers can score sprint points, instructors don't. So that's going to be a small edge when we have our sprint rounds. The next one's going to be Miami, which is round 6 of the championship. We're currently on round 3. So, yeah, those would be my thoughts on driver versus constructor. Constructor, more volatile value, more stable point wise. Driver, a bit more volatile point wise and a bit more stable value wise. And depends on what you want to prioritize and where you think the bargains are. Even with the higher value, like Ferrari's quote higher valued, but they're a heck of a bargain this week, right? So we're still bargain hunting even at the pricier tier until we get to the end of the season where we don't get to take the money with us, so we spend it, right?
Great answer. Another kind of more gameplay, non-lineup question from Daniel Longworth. Are improvement points related to an increase in value?
If you've scored improvement points, there's a good chance you're gaining value just because you had a good day. But improvement points are based purely on your finish position relative to your improvement index, as we call it, which eventually is your trailing 8-race average finish. At the start of the season, it is wherever we rank the driver initially, and then we start to fill in races as the season goes on. So it's based on finish position, based on average / rank. It's not based so much on it's not based on value, but there is some correlation just because better than usual day means you gain value often in our game. Like value as a whole is just based on whether you outperformed where you were.
Graphitos 13, what strategies do you typically follow for contract length? For example, do you favor stacking 2 to 3 contracts for 1 to 2 races?
I'm always having contracts roll off every single event. And what I'm looking for is I'm working from the top. So I'm like, who do I definitely want for the longest amount of time? And then I'm building the contract lengths kind of around them a little bit. So like if I am signing someone for 4 or 5 races, I want to make sure that I'm staggering my selections, that I always have 2 or 3 rolling off every single race so that I could read and react to what's happening and have options. And especially this early in the season, I don't do contracts longer than 3. I don't do contract lengths longer than 3. I want maximum flexibility. I want to chase upside. I want to chase early improvements and, crazy situations like we've had so far in the first 2 races. So that's how I think about contract lengths.
The number one thing I look at, again, I always like to caveat that I'm a slightly right of bell curve GridRival player. I don't have spreadsheets helping me figure out all this stuff. I know some of our viewers are like super diehard. I'm in too many leagues. I don't have the patience, and so the thing that I look at most, the quickest and probably the most viewed screen for me on GridRival is the driver's salary fluctuation page. Especially over time, as you see their graph, like you can start to see a trend. And the thing I'm looking at more than anything else, mostly the first half to 2/3 of the season when I'm focused exclusively on value, I'm thinking about how undervalued do I think a driver or constructor is, and how long do I think it's going to take them to come back from that, or to get to where I think they can go. So, if I'm signing Lawson as an example, and I think that his upside is like another 4 million or 6 million, I think about how long do I want to have him on my team? How many opportunities do I want to have him for to give him that the opportunity to grow? Second to that is exactly what Michael said, which I'm looking forward to. Do I want to leave myself positions open for any specific reason at the next event to be able to swap somebody and not have to pay a release fee? The thing that I never look at, that a lot of people that are really good at this game do, especially in like if you're in a NASCAR or IndyCar league, but it does have relevance in F1, just not as much because the circuit types in Formula One are so similar compared to something like IndyCar where they race on ovals and street courses and road courses. But the one thing that a lot of really great players look at is what type of events are next, right? And how does this driver do? And so there is relevance in Formula One, but not quite as much. So those are some things to consider. Last question, non-lineup related, then we'll get back to some lineups for our last 10 minutes. Daniel Hayworth, is there data on the app where I can find out what position a guy would have to finish to increase in value? There is. And unlike any other F1 fantasy or motorsports fantasy app that I think we've come across, we actually fully expose the exact formulas that we use for driver salary fluctuation. So if you're ever curious about why did my driver go up in this amount when they finished in this spot, go to the gear icon in the top right of your league and click, I think it's under the scoring tab. Is that right,
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah. Scoring.
Yep. Scoring. Scoring, and then click on salaries, and you can actually see the exact formula. So if you want to try and create a predictive model or even just do some basic math on, hey, my driver's at 8.4 million now and he's ranked 17th, like where does he need to finish to go up $2 million? All of that is there in the app. You can see it in a chart format, and it's also, if you're on your desktop computer, you just go to support.gridrival.com and then go to the league section, and it's there as well. So very easy to do that. Yeah.
One caveat I'll give is it's not quite as simple as what position does your one driver have to finish. This is because, as explained on that rules page, value changes are based on your rank with fantasy points rather than race position. Race position is an important part of that, but
Correct.
teammate points, improvement points, etc., that
And
all matters as well.
And that is probably that accounts for about 90% of every support question we get around value.
That's how you can win a race and lose a little bit of value.
For sure, exactly. And a lot of you'll see someone like Lando Norris win a race and maybe his value stays flat or maybe it even drops. And people are like, well, what the heck? How is that possible? And it's because he didn't finish first place in fantasy points, because we didn't create a game where the only thing that mattered was finish position. So just something to remember if that scenario ever happens. We got 8 minutes left. We're definitely not going to get through every lineup question. Thanks to this show continuing to grow. Last year we were usually able to do it, but the amount of viewers we're getting is growing. So we'll need to think about how to do that going forward. Jack Westbrook said, I have Norris, Sainz, Bortoletto for one more race and Racing Bulls for 2 more races. I have 52 million to work with. Thinking Leclerc for sure. I like that. At 52.2 million, if he signs Leclerc, what does he have left?
28.9.
28.9. Oh, I mean, you could get. Oh, he's got Norris. I mean, you could get Russell. We talked about Russell a little bit earlier in the show. We haven't talked about him since. I don't know that Russell's on sale. I'll actually say I'm pretty certain Russell's not on sale, but I think he's a fairly consistent choice for points. Signs. Yeah, I mean, you could go Hadjar and you'd have a ton of money left in the bank.
Yeah, I mean, are you gonna? I'm assuming you're gonna run signs for talent driver, right? So if you're gonna run signs for talent driver, and you're not looking for a different talent driver, you're not looking to make changes to your team. Something about this lineup feels just a little bit imbalanced because you already have Norris. You'd be able to pick up Leclerc, and then you still have 28 million left, which you'd want to spend on a blue chip driver or making sure you have the best talent driver selection available for points.
Like if we're just taking drivers, it's like Piastri, Leclerc, and that works.
Yeah.
This is assuming we don't make any changes to the lineup, which you could consider that. You might consider taking maybe Leclerc and then swap Racing Bulls for a better constructor and then grab somebody else at the talent tier, like a Hadjar, for example.
Let's see. Another general question. This is super useful. We really appreciate it. I'm new to GridRival. Does this stream typically happen before FP3? We mentioned that at the top of the show. Last year, this show was on Tuesdays. And so this year, we are testing out having it on Friday. I'm pretty sure most of the time that it will that means it will be after at least one practice session, a lot of times two.
Certainly before FP3, which is typically on Saturdays.
Correct.
Or Friday night if we're in Japan like this week.
And based off the viewer numbers just of today alone, I do think Friday's looking probably like a much more achievable time frame for a lot of folks to jump on.
Yeah, and the four of us work 7 days a week. So if you want to see us get on a podcast on Saturday, these numbers got a 10x, and then we'll turn our webcams on because we're working anyway on Saturday and Sunday. So we
work 7 days a week, sleep 5 days a week.
Yeah,
There's many spots instead of GridRival to invite your friends, and that is the best way you could help us. The other way is you could go into your app store and give us a 5-star review. Okay, we have 4 minutes left, and we are not going to get to every single question around rosters. The good news is, if we didn't get to your question, I would be blown away if we didn't kind of answer it somehow indirectly. But last, maybe probably have time for one or two DJ syncrasy. I've got Ferrari for 2 races. Dustin did mention merch again, so that's a good. We always need him on the show. Bringing up merch. We got you someday, Dustin. Okay. I've got Ferrari for 2 races, Norris for 2 races, and provisionally Antonelli, Alonso, Hadjar, and Bortoleto each for 1 race with only 100K left. 1 race. Antonelli, Alonso, Hadjar, and Bortoleto. That's a bold move. I would say we don't have a sprint race next. Why only 1 race? That's risky.
Yeah, I think
it's definitely risky.
Is worth holding for more than 1 race.
I agree. I also, Bortoleto I could maybe see for 1 race if you're going to try and YOLO him and hope that he finishes, 16th and gets you 2 more million, and then you directly get that in your bank account. Antonelli and Alonso, though, first of all, I don't feel like either of those have those 2 drivers don't seem, or they're not screaming to me significant upside. And so I feel like signing for 1 race is risky because, best case they maybe stay flat, maybe go up a little bit, but
whatever you do, if you're going to have 1 race contracts, make sure it's not just Bortoleto, who's the lowest value driver, because otherwise you could find yourself in a spot where you can't make a complete lineup next week and you have to eat a drop fee to be able to make a complete lineup, which would be suboptimal. That's the one warning I'll give there. But I think a lot of these guys could be not just 1 race contracts. They could be 2 races, 3 races, more than that potentially.
Yeah.
And if we didn't answer your questions, we can also keep the conversation going in the paddock on your GridRival app or on our Discord.
That is
great
very
community
true.
there.
I'll get into the paddock and impart some wisdom on the people tonight. Some people go out and have fun on Friday nights. I'll be sitting around in the paddock, so join me.
The paddock is not paddock is only US users only at the moment, right?
As of right now.
I only asked because I know there's some folks from Australia and I think UK that are on here.
So got the Discord. Check that out too.
Paddock go to the Discord. Yeah. Find us on Discord. We will have the paddock hopefully rolled out outside of the US sometime soon.
Canada, UK, Australia in the next 2 weeks, ideally.
Okay. We are out of time. That is, I think the first time we haven't been able to get through everything. So we apologize if we didn't get to your question. Go ahead, Ryan. Say something.
That was one of the last questions. Is GridRival a full-time job for you all?
Just a full-time job?
We work 90-something hours a week.
I wish it was. I wish it was full-time.
This is a double-time job.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, there's 2 more people at GridRival that are not on this call, and there's 110,000 of you all. It is way more than a full-time job.
Yeah, we have
And the
6
races are
full-time
at 2
staff.
a.m.
This is 2/3 of the company that show up to this call. Yeah, I wish it was full-time. Okay. We love everybody. Thanks for showing up. Thank you for supporting what we're doing. Invite your friends, review our app. And like I said, if you want to make sure you never miss one of these, follow us on YouTube. We typically announce show dates like probably the morning of the day that we do them. But we can reliably say that we would expect them to be usually early to late afternoon on Fridays going forward. So if that changes, we will let you know. Look for the push notifications. Everybody enjoy the Japanese Grand Prix. I think it's going to be an exciting race, and we will see you at the next event. See you later. All right. That was more viewers in China.